I'd like to start with a letter from a woman who says, I have an adult daughter whom I have been getting closer to, but we've had real problems in the past. She's never been very responsible, which is always code for she's been very irresponsible. I love hearing that phrase. She's not very smart. She's a really stupid kid. And she continues, as a child and as an adult, she's done a pretty terrible job of respecting our home, the home of my husband and myself, and the rules of the home. So she doesn't clean up after herself. She makes messes. She uses things without asking. She'll come in when we're not there, borrow things, not return them, and on and on. The usual kid stuff, except she's an adult and she still does it. Now that California, she continues, is being quarantined, she's being assigned to work from home starting next week. She doesn't want to be by herself in her apartment, so she asked if she could move back home temporarily. Now, everybody keep in mind, I know this woman. So that taints or flavors my answer a little, but even if I didn't, it wouldn't be much different. No chance. Now, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just speaking about probabilities and what works and what doesn't. Zero chance. None. She has proven that she's irresponsible. So there's no way, that's the zero, in case we're not clear, not little, no way she would be cooperative and helpful in the house if she returned. That's already been proven. Events don't change people. Oh, well, we're being quarantined, so I'm going to be responsible, kind, and loving. No. We're quarantined, and if I've been irresponsible, I'm actually going to be more irresponsible because I'm more stressed. So, living with you, don't do it. But you could Skype with her every day. Perhaps she could finally be motivated while quarantined to, for example, watch everything on the reallove.com site, which is free. Hundreds and hundreds of hours of stuff. She's talked about how she needs to change her life, and so you say, here's your chance. Instead of just being lonely, angry, and unhappy. You just offer it as a suggestion. She's an adult, so she can do what she wants. And if she says, well, I don't know, don't argue with her. But you temporarily rescuing her by just giving her the illusion of not being alone, that's not going to help her. Not to mention that she would break the quarantine just to change where she lives now and expose you to everybody that she's had contact with in the past several weeks. And since you're older, you'd get sicker. And now we know, well, we've known for some time, but nobody was paying attention, that people without symptoms pass the virus on to other people. So this is a creepy disease. People are giving you the disease and they look fine. Mom continues, I said that I wouldn't want her to be by herself either, in her apartment. But if that were to happen, we would need to thoroughly discuss what that looks like in terms of participating in the household duties and other rules. And she agreed. That makes sense because we don't do that well in general, being together for long periods of time. Well, honey, there you have it. You have a long track record of her being irresponsible and the two of you not getting along well. So if she came to your house, nothing will have changed except now you're trapped together. She hasn't made any substantive changes in her life, so she'll be the same uncooperative, sloppy, and difficult child. She will not cooperate. If there were a betting line in Vegas, I'd take everything I had and put it on that. And I would just instantly win. You'd be back to nagging and controlling because you wouldn't be able to take it. She would continue to be irresponsible and difficult, and it would be awful. And now, instead of just being confined to your house, you're confined to a prison where you're being tortured. And, well, where you'd retaliate by torturing her too. Mom says, I told her I get resentful when I feel taken advantage of. So doing it differently would be really important. I can't help it. I've watched parents say to their children, now this time you really can't do this. Something that they've done 100 times before. Sneak out at night or whatever. This time it's really important. And you can just see the kid in their head going, wow, are you stupid? Because they don't care. So you're cute to tell her that it's really important, but also really naive. You can talk all you want, but she hasn't changed who she is. Or actually, more accurately, she hasn't discovered who she is. She's just a ball of fear. So she will repeat old behaviors, and so will you. She's just too much for you stuck in one house. If you do this, if you let her come to your house, I'm not going to stop you. I won't be disappointed. But then you deserve everything that happens afterward. And if it's a miserable hell, no need to write me and tell me because I will have already concluded that and you'll still be stuck together. Mom said, maybe we should write up a contract and I could initiate the contract. Isn't this just sounding, it's amazing what we can rationalize in our heads. We make these decisions out of sympathy, fear, feelings, and then our brains come in and go, I can think of 100 reasons why this is a great idea. Like jumping off the top of the barn with a set of paper wings that I fabricated that look just like Leonardo da Vinci's. Yeah, except he never jumped off a barn with the wings that he drew. Our brains are very creative. So we could write up a contract since I know how I want things to go in my house. And she said she's fine with consequences for failure to live up to the contract. Now I'm hysterically laughing. Every war in history has been preceded by a treaty that was then broken, or often many treaties. You could have a 200-page contract written by a team of lawyers and she'll end up doing exactly what she wants because she's reacting to her pain, not because she's a bad person. No, when we're in pain, that trumps everything. And then people say, well, but that's against the contract. And then their brains kick in with all these creative, brilliant ideas why this occasion is an exception to the contract. She doesn't make wise choices when she's afraid. And she hasn't addressed her pain. So she's going to keep reacting as before. Guarantee. New subject. This is from a mother who is experienced with real love parenting. Because of the isolation, I reinforced phone use with my 16-year-old. We've been learning real love for a while. 2 days ago, she became upset in our daily meeting saying that the current phone restrictions, quote, didn't work for her. End quote. Well, yeah, any restriction doesn't work for them. I stopped her, Mom says, right there, asking her to discuss this another time when we can talk about it without complaining or acting like a victim. That's pretty brilliant. Because if you talk to a child while they're whining and it doesn't work for them, they're not going to hear anything you're saying. Unless you're extraordinarily loving. It could happen, like the mother that we talked about, I think, in the last Facebook Live, who was talking to a daughter who was upset and was so loving that the daughter just poured her heart out. Could happen, but brilliant of you to just put it off. We always want to hear our children talk and feel. That's what we would like. But while they're upset and angry and complaining, mostly they're not even there. They're just protecting themselves. And who they are has actually already left the room. You're just interacting with their fears, which is unproductive, at least at this age. You do have to interact with a 6-month-old child. So we waited, Mom says, and tried again today without the complaining, and she came up with a suggestion. Ooh, I love that. I used to do that with my kids. When they would start to complain, I would go, I am deaf to the noise that you are making. If you don't like something, I frankly don't care. If you don't like something and you have an alternate plan, I am fascinated. Now I want to hear. I want to hear everything. But just, I don't like it? No, don't care. So she came up with a suggestion that might work better, and I listened. And I thought it was a pretty good plan for a 16-year-old who mostly is sensible. She's not addicted to games or social media, for example. She just thought that now that she's out of school and we're being socially isolated, she could use social media to feel less isolated. Now, there are warning signs here. Her reasoning is good, but children are brilliant at using reasoning to rationalize just doing whatever they want. So it's not like I'm doubting the daughter, but I am going, bing, one red flag, because she's getting real rational here. And they don't usually do that. It's usually, this is what I want. Oh, and she volunteered that I could monitor her use by periodically checking her account and monitoring how long she uses. I know that sounds perfect, but that's my second red flag. The more rational they are, the more likely it is that they're trying to con you into doing something. That is not always the case, but you just have to be paying attention. Notice I didn't say be afraid or cautious, just be aware. So here's the new plan. She divides the day into 3 blocks, 8 to 1, 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon, 1 to 6, 6 to 10. Well, those are 5-hour blocks except for the last one, which is 4, so I'm just going to call them 5 hours. So she will hand me her phone and have a break from the phone for 1.5 hours once during each of those blocks, leaving her to choose what times to do schoolwork, music, engage people on social media. I won't nag or ask. If she fails to keep the guidelines for a block, then I keep her phone for the next block. Does that sound like a good plan? Mom asks. Maybe. For a child who's not addicted to phone use, that could work because but notice she's using the phone 3.5 out of the 5 hours. That's a lot. That's 70%, I'm pretty sure. And yes, I know she uses it for music and schoolwork, but keep in mind a couple of things. Just keep them in mind. I'm not telling you to implement the plan or don't implement the plan. I'm just doing with you what I suggest every parent does. Love you and teach you. And then you make the decision. Notice that she's described her plan about phone use. What's her life purpose? Her life purpose isn't social media and music. So what is her plan for improving her life? Not just, I'll give you the phone. I'll give up. Notice what it sounds like. I'll give up what matters most to me, the phone, to you for 1.5 hours. She's already identified what matters most. What is she doing to feel more loved, to be more loving, to be more responsible? I'm not hearing that in the plan. She may have proposed it, but I wasn't there and I'm not hearing it. So the plan's for the phone, but not for life. And I'm not saying she doesn't have one, just pointing it out so that you can consider it as you consider the plan. Because we tend to consider things one at a time. When I build a concrete block wall, I can't consider the blocks one at a time. I have to consider what the entire line of the blocks is going to look like, actually, and then all of the ins and outs of the blocks around the trees, and then how high they're going to be, and which ones are going to be filled with concrete, and which ones are going to have rebar in them. And you have to consider the whole thing, not just one block, like 1.5 hours out of 5 hours. That's the first thing to consider. Second, she made the plan. If a child has a great plan that involves responsibility, I'm all for that. They do better if it's a plan they made on the whole. I did that with my kids. If they proposed plans, they said, I don't like your plan. I go, bring it on. What's yours? If theirs was even close to as effective, roughly speaking, you can't calculate this, but if it was 2/3 as effective as the one I proposed, let's do it your way then. I don't care about the thing being done. It's what you learn from it. But notice that her plan was for her only, her benefit, her entertainment. She may not abuse this. I'm not criticizing her at all. That makes it highly likely, though, that she would play you and take charge of her life without a real sense of overall purpose for why she's here. Lastly, you really, if you do this, need to monitor her use and make sure that it's not just all play, and that her claim to use it for schoolwork is true. If she breaks restrictions once, well, do what she said, skip the next block. But if she does it repeatedly, and you discover that it is used primarily for social media, you're going to have to remove the phone. I mean, like, remove. Because kids, that's how you discover whether a child is addicted. They have a plan and they break the plan repeatedly. That means they can't help themselves. And that's the definition of an addiction, which you may not have known. Every child is different. This plan definitely wouldn't work for an addicted child. But for a responsible child who has proven herself in the past, it might. Now, it turns out that for everybody else, they did implement the plan. And I learned later that it did work pretty good. It wasn't just about the phone. Mom and daughter did a lot of things together, so I wasn't expressing doubt about this particular child, just the potential pitfalls. And then a week after that, I learned that, it wasn't working so well. The daughter was using it more and more for social media and for goofing around, and was breaking the time limits and was not turning it in 1.5 hours for every 5-hour block. That was not certain, but pretty likely to happen. And so mom had to modify the plan, but it was still definitely worth giving it a shot, It was worth trying. So the bottom line here is just pay attention to the overall picture with everything, with phone use, with entertainment, with kids, the way they treat each other. Be aware of the overall and be listening for the fine points at the same time, like the single weeds, like the single moment that a child their entire facial expression changes. Something is going on. We just need to listen and be aware, and everything goes better. Then we can apply the principle of love and teach much better. We'll see you tomorrow.